Right, but then it sounds like you're taking another step and saying because there's this just super vague, I mean, it's not a vague command, obviously, if it's saying that murder is wrong, but just this thing that everyone couldn't be more okay with. Like, yeah, I can really get on board with that.
What would a book look like that God is behind? What would it look like?
Well, it would start with
making. We
don't
have any offer. I mean, I can't say that I could give.
But you can say it's not God. How can you say it's not of God, but have no idea what something of God would look like?
What I'm saying is if there were lines that said things that no human being could possibly know. Let's give the example came up the other day of laminin, or this thing that Louis Giglio or whatever his name is talks about. That it looks like a cross, and so it must have been the Lord.
Some kind of cell glue.
It's if the Lord came and told us about the inner workings of the cell, or it doesn't have to be something biological in nature. It could just be something that no mortal could have known, and later we can verify. Right? Do you understand why that's important? Like, do you understand why that would be important? For us to be able to say, you know what, we're on firm ground to accept Jesus' claims because he told us all of these things. He's given us great reasons to trust what he's saying instead of the same reasons that every charlatan, con artist, and false teacher has given us throughout all of time.
And you think there are no statements like that? Is that what you were saying?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if there was a statement like that, I would say, holy moly. We have to start having a real conversation about this line or this paragraph or all of these prophecies or whatever.
And so I wonder if kind of maybe as you all have talked about this, is that a relevant consideration given your conception of how the Bible was inspired?
Right? Clearly not.
I mean, a lot of atheists, they like to focus on errors of the Bible, and to be sure, it is a problem if people are claiming that a book is authored by the Lord and it's riddled with errors. That's a problem, and I think the Bible has plenty of them. But that is not the issue to center on, right? A text can be 100% error-free and be written by a man. Right, all of us right now could sit down and compose a work that is free from error, and it wouldn't for a second give anyone credence to say, "Well, the Lord must have authored that." I mean, it would have to say something more than that, right? The reason would have to be bigger. Like, extraordinary claims require extraordinary reasons.
Okay, you're putting it to a different standard than I am. That's clear, but.
We obviously have a different standard of what constitutes good reasons.
Well, when you say something can only be authored by God, if the statement is so miraculous it blows my mind, and I would say, what does that statement look like? And you can't give me anything.
What do you mean?
Was your comment earlier about this? I want to try to move us on to this, and because we want to have time for questions too. Was that there were statements? That there should be those statements, particular
absolutely.
Things that no one could have known.
I'm saying
but
that too.
For the inspiration directly from God, those are the things we should be looking for in the text.
If I'm going to use an example of another claim that could be made, and no one need worry. This is a hypothetical example. Let's say I make the claim, I own a nuclear missile. Right? It's an incredible claim. Why aren't you guys justified in believing that I own a nuclear missile, right? Well, first of all, you say, well, it's kind of weird. I mean, you just don't look like the kind of guy who would have a nuclear missile. You're a college student. You're debating atheism, right? But it's not true, right? It's not an impossible claim, right? Because you know that some people do in fact own nuclear missiles. Right? So it's conceivable. It's more than conceivable that I could. But what would it take for me to convince you of this? Right? I would have to lay some pretty good reasons out on the table. Now, if I showed it to you, if I took you to my spooky white van and just opened it up and here it is, and that would be a great reason for you to believe that I owned one, right? But you wouldn't have to see it. To accept this claim as true. You could certain events could start to occur throughout your day. The Wichita police chief could give you a call and say, "Hey, I saw that you were at this event. The word has it that you were at this event that Ben was at. we've got some cause to be suspicious of his activity. I mean, and some of your closest friends could come to you and say, "Gosh, he was at Walmart. He was buying all these he had a nuclear physics textbook, and it had this look in his eye." Things could start to converge that would, without you ever having seen the nuclear missile, for you to be justified believing that it was true. Now, that's something that we know that it's possible. We know that's more than possible for for anyone to have, because people do in fact have them. We have plenty of examples, right? So when someone comes to us and says that a text was authored by the creator of the universe, right? How much more reasons, what kind of quality of reasons are we going to ask for before we say, hey, you know what, I think you're onto something?
All right, I'm going to move to the audience, look for questions. While I do that, if either of you want to talk about the Bible and authorship, nuclear weapons, because I think actually probably a good segue here for a comment about the importance of that authorship and what role that maybe plays for you all. You do that while I go to the audience.
All right, so you're making this statement that a book was written by God, and therefore it must be just blow your mind amazing.
I'm saying it needs to convince me. It doesn't have to be.
No, okay. Where Greg and I come from, and where an average Christian comes from, is that what makes something amazing is not like, oh, he explained the cell. When God communicates his truth to human beings, it might not look like, oh, I just told you how a cloud works. It's clearly God. It looks like God saying, this is what I want from you. This is who I am. This is what you were created for. This is my plan for your life. It's not written in some weird, crazy, oh, wow, look at that. It's a statement. It's stories about who God is and who we are.
I'm with you that God can tell us about the plan that he has for us as much as he wants.
That's
right?
God speaking. Isn't that incredible?
No one is objecting to God telling us what's on his mind, right? I mean, what we're asking for are some reasons to believe that it's actually God talking, when all we have on offer are the same kinds of pieces of paper that we have when humans author books, right? And we know that humans lie or are mistaken or just plain old wrong about plenty of other texts on offer that they think were written by divinities, right? Miracle workers claiming divinity are as common as construction on Kellogg, right? I mean, this should trouble us when we have somebody that is saying on offer, oh no, all these other ones are wrong, but mine is I've got the juice, but then not producing it, right? We can't talk about just how much God wants us to love one another and then pretend for an instant that constitutes a good reason.
Okay, we're going to move the conversation a little. We have plenty of time for questions. I'm going to walk around, so you'll have to raise your hand or something to help. We're going to let people ask some questions. Some of you probably want to direct them toward one side. I think that's probably fine. I imagine the other side is going to want to take a little response. We're going to ask you to limit your questions, try to keep them direct and brief, and that way we can get everybody's questions in.
Hello, I'm Mark Foster, and my question is, why should I believe in a man who appears to be crazy, either that or the Son of God, when he says, I'm the only way, I'm the way, the truth, the life. You can only get to heaven through me. What proof in the Bible do you have that over in the Old Testament, New Testament, and why should we believe that Jesus Christ is actually God, or just a crazy man, a lunatic?
Who is that question to?
Is that to us? Or us?
Pete and Greg, I think you want to take.
I would guess you.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter, Greg, if you want to do that.
First off, I would say that Jesus' resurrection. I would agree with you. If he was not resurrected from the dead, well, then our belief is pretty crazy, that of a madman. But the fact that he was resurrected from the dead, I think, gives us pretty solid ground to believe that he is the way, the truth, and the life.
And I think just the way the world changed with him, the way, at this event that they clearly want to debunk that never happened, an entire tide of human history was altered when the claim was made that Jesus came out of that tomb. And it wasn't just It wasn't just a change of like, oh, here's a new truth to accept. It was the dawning of a new way to be human, a new way to live your life. And for the last 2,000 years, people that have seen it and not just sort of accepted it, but said, no, I'm going to live this way. I'm going to take the words of Jesus and let my life be transformed by them. Their lives have been transformed, and they've seen a change. And it's not just one person, it's millions of people. And the world has been better for it. So I think that's good reason to accept it.
It's probably also worth pointing out that we have good reasons to believe that Jesus never uttered such a line, that the gospel author has placed that line on the lips of Jesus.
All right, we've got plenty of questions here.
I have a couple comments. First of all, talking about the authorship of the Bible and the inspiration of the Bible. I'm not a biblical expert, but if you're looking for extraordinary things from the Bible, I know that there was a lot of prophecies as to Jesus himself being born, and scientists and scholars have looked into that, and as Pete was saying, the probability that all of those would be true in one person is really a lot of proof to me. And then there's also prophecies later in the Bible which we see coming true as far as people returning to Israel and some of those things too. So that would be, to me, miracles and something that humans back then would not know. The second thing I would say to the gentleman that just asked why we should believe in Jesus, well, I would say on the people that lived at the time that he did, being his followers, his apostles, I don't see any reason why they would martyr themselves for someone that did not perform the miracles and did not rise from the dead. And my last comment is to the atheist gentleman. You cannot see love, you cannot prove it, so do you believe in it?
We have great reasons to believe that the people that love us do in fact love us. I think I'm on firm evidential ground believing something like that. I don't know if...
In the same way that we know that no one is disputing that Greg believes in Christian claims, we are not for a second disputing that ancient Jews or early Christians did in fact believe, and in many cases, as you pointed out, died for their beliefs.
Why would they die?
Okay.
Yeah.
If they didn't actually see it happen, there are Christians today that have not seen it happen, that we can all Google search, that have died for their beliefs.
We don't know how the original disciples died. Even if we did, I mean, it wouldn't make a difference. But we don't know that they were martyred for their faith, much less in their belief in the resurrection. What we have are later legends of how the 12 apostles died.
We can do one better. Let's assume that they wicked believed it, and we know how they died for their Christian faith. How then do we tell a Muslim who says, well, how do you explain all of our Muslim brethren who have died for their beliefs in Allah? That if they hadn't seen him arise to heaven on a magic pony.
All right, but before we move on, and I know lots of people have things they want to say, and I guarantee that people will be available to continue the conversation after we're done. We want to let everybody get a chance. We had a comment about prophecy, and I don't know if anybody, kind of truth value of prophecy and their role. I don't know if that was the first question. I think if either side wants to say something about that briefly.
Touch on this, since it comes up.